let's do this. Hey guys, it's Dani and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel. Today's video is a video that I thought about making so many times. I've been thinking about making this video for a long time, and every time I thought about making the video, I just kind of chickened out and decided not to. I've watched several stories about this. I've talked to several people about their story, but I never ever chime in with my story, just because I know that it's really hard to talk about. It's really hard to even explain and accept that happened to me. I think it's so important that there's an extra story out there for women to go to. When this happened to me, I searched on YouTube for hours every day. I would drive to work and have my phone on the dash holder, just like listening to anything I could find that related to my story, to kind of figure out why, to see how they got through it, to see if they had hope. I joined all these Facebook groups that I could find, and to be honest with you, there were not many stories on ectopic pregnancies. There weren't many at all. And I needed that. Like, I needed in that moment, I needed to hear a real person's story. And that's why I realized that I have to tell my story now. I have to. If I'm going to be on YouTube, there's no reason for me not to go ahead and put this out there for someone else that may need some encouragement. So this intro is getting way too long, so let me just go ahead and get to the story. First things first, my husband Christopher and I, you've seen him in a couple videos now. We got engaged in November of 2016 and married the next year. So really less than a year we got married. We got married September 23rd, 2017. And at the time we lived in an apartment, and it was not the best apartment. I mean, it was an apartment. It was what we needed at the time. I wanted to live closer to my job at the time, and he wanted to get out and be independent as well, so we just got this apartment together. And we lived there for a year, a little over a year. And then when we got married, we decided that it was time to start looking for a house. And found a house really quickly, purchased the house we live in now. We've been here since 2017. Since December 2017, we bought this house. And that's when the story really starts. So we were so excited. We found our first house, you know. So my dad's birthday is January 25th. And I remember that birthday in 2017 that I just felt like crap. Like, I just didn't feel really good. And Chris was like, well, maybe we should get a pregnancy test because, you know, you seem like something's really odd with you. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I was like, I'm period. It'll be here. And then, you know, we'll have to worry about it. So it did not come. And my period's like, it's like clock. So I went and I took a test, and it was positive, like instant positive. I took like 6 or 7 tests to make sure that they were all positive. And they all were. Just based off of my calculations, the baby would have been due in September of 2017. So right for our 1-year anniversary, we were going to have a newborn baby. And we didn't care. We were still excited. We were still, you know, happy. And we instantly told our parents and our grandparents. And I think I told my cousin Kelsey, and he may have told his friend Nathan. But that was it. Like, that was all we told, because, you know, you have to wait the 3 months to make sure everything's okay. When I tell you that nothing in my mind ever thought anything was wrong, like, I just went through the next few months like I was pregnant. So I called my doctor, and it's really weird because they don't even schedule you for an appointment until 8 or so weeks. So I didn't see a doctor for a while. I found out I was pregnant really early, so I was probably about a month pregnant, and I didn't go to the doctor till I was 10 weeks pregnant. No cramping, there was no bleeding, everything just seemed like it was good. I also didn't feel sick, and I remember telling Christopher and my mom how I just didn't feel sick. Like, I just felt perfectly normal. Other than my boobs were really sore and I did pee a lot. But other than that, I felt perfectly normal. And I was like, oh, well, it's really early, maybe you're not gonna, maybe you just won't get the symptoms. And Chris was like, oh, well, I think that's normal. You don't have to be sick during pregnancy. So I just kind of didn't think about it and just said everything was fine. But when I say there was nothing. Like, I was perfectly fine. Then fast forward to early February. So Christopher and we were talking, and he said, you know what? Well, do you want to keep it secret? Like, do you want to just not tell people? He's like, we should tell people so that, they can pray for us and they can pray for the baby, and, they can be in our thoughts and prayers. And I remember thinking and saying, well, yeah, like, I feel fine. I feel great. We pray over this baby every night and everything's fine. Like, I'm pretty sure we're fine. Like, what are the chances? What are the odds that I would miscarry? Now, let me tell you, I had never even heard of ectopic pregnancies or any other things that could happen in a pregnancy. So, I thought it was fine. So we did. I went to, that night, my mom and I went to Target, and I was so excited because I was going to make this super cute pregnancy announcement. And so I went to Target with my mom, and if I can find the actual picture I posted, I'll post it on here. And I found these 3 pairs of shoes. It was a man size of gray Vans. Well, not Vans, they were Keds, like the inexpensive version of Vans. I didn't pay for Vans for a picture. So it was like the gray ones for Chris, the smaller gray ones for me, and they had these little baby gray moccasins. And I made this whole thing. We set them up, we took pictures, and that night, after Chris and I talked, I came home and I posted that to my friends on Facebook and Instagram, and he posted to his on Facebook and Instagram. I might have also posted on Twitter. And of course, everyone was so shocked, so excited, so many comments, so many likes, everyone sending so much love, and we felt so good. Like, it felt so good to just be pregnant. Everybody knew. All our family knew. It was about to be Super Bowl Sunday. It was just great. So my team at the time, if you don't know, I'm not even going to go into that, but Super Bowl Sunday, went there to my grandparents' house. It was great. I was pregnant. Everybody was so excited. Felt great then too. Didn't feel sick. Didn't feel tired. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're glowing." They're good things, and never in the back of my mind did I think something could be wrong because everything felt normal. And my cousin, he actually was going away to the Marines. And so he had a going away dinner at his grandpa's restaurant. So we go to that, and everybody knows I'm pregnant now. So I go, and everyone's so excited. They're talking like, "Oh, do you have cravings? Do you have this? Do you have that?" And I'm like, "No." And everyone was talking. They were like, "Yeah, by now I was craving this and that." And that was the first time I felt like maybe something's wrong, because these women that were there talking, they were saying how sick they were by now and how they had so many cravings by now. And I felt normal. Like, other than my boobs hurting and my back was sore, I felt normal. Now that I know that my back being sore could have been in relation to the situation, but at the time, no idea. I just thought it was, early pregnancy. And so when I left there, I remember feeling so uneasy, and I was Googling like crazy on the ride home. I rode with my mom there, and I was Googling like crazy, and Baby Center was like my go-to at the time to see what other moms were saying. And a lot of times people said that it was just normal. You don't have to have that, because every February 21st, February 21st, and by now I am 2.5, almost 3 months pregnant, and that was my first doctor's appointment. Crazy, because I was low risk, I was young, I'm healthy, and they just said they're gonna need to come. unless there was some, you know, issue like bleeding or pain. They're like, you don't need to come. So I remember that day I had taken off. I was so excited. My friends at work, they knew I was going, so they were excited for me to go. And I was like, oh, I'll send you pictures, because I'd seen that, you know, you get your sonogram pictures there and, you know, everything. So I go and I'm so excited. My mom gets off work early to meet me there. Chris couldn't get off, but I told him I'm going to FaceTime him there when they show the baby on the screen. So everything's great. I'm excited. I'm happy. My mom's excited. Like, she's about to call my dad, because just my mom and I there. And we go in, and then the first thing they do is they have you do a urine sample, and they have you do a blood test just to, you know, check again that you're pregnant and check your HCG levels. I can't remember the exact name, like the scientific name for HCG, but it's apparently, you know, your levels of pregnancy, like how pregnant you are. And when they did those tests on me, very pregnant. I think my HCG was like a 2,000 or so at the time. It was something crazy. And they're just like, oh, this is great. You know, these are great signs. Any cramping, any pain? And I was like, no, everything's great. I was like, I have a little bit of back pain. And she's like, oh, you know, that's normal. And I also have scoliosis. So me having scoliosis and, you know, now having a human growing inside of me, it wasn't, you know, odd for me to have back pain. So the nurse was really, you know, she was exciting. She was like, congratulations, you know, and I don't blame her, but seeing her so excited from those results, I felt at ease. I felt so at peace. And I just really felt like it would just be fine. Like, I'd go in here, see this baby, and go on about this pregnancy. So we get in the room. They have me take that. You put a little like cloth over yourself, like little sheet. And the nurse said, you know, the doctor will be in a second. So my mom's in there with me. And so she comes in and she's like, oh, you know, are you having any pains? Same things that the nurse asked me. And I was like, no, everything feels great. Everything feels fine. I was like, is it weird that I'm not sick? She goes, no. She's like, that could be perfectly normal. She said, I wasn't sick my whole pregnancy. You know, I'd never threw up. I was like, okay. And her baby's here and healthy. Her daughter was like 5 or 6 at the time. So she had to do, because I was so early, she said I'd be able to hear the heartbeat and I'd be able to see the embryo, but we wouldn't be able to do it externally, so I had to get an internal sonogram. So I'm getting Chris on the phone, FaceTiming. My mom has her camera out because, like, she's so excited. So I remember Chris getting on the phone, and I remember the doctor putting the camera, I guess, putting the camera in. And she was looking around. She's like, oh, let's see this baby. And I'm so excited. And she's like looking around and looking around. And Chris is like, oh, like, did they see the baby yet? And I remember the doctor's face. She just looked directly at my mom. She didn't look at me. She looked directly at my mom in her eyes. And my mom was looking at her. And my mom's face completely changed. Like, she just knew something wasn't right. Like, the doctor was looking and looking. And she says, maybe you should call your husband back. All right, I'm trying to get emotional because it's hard to talk about. It still takes me right back to that moment. So I hung up with Christopher and I was like, I'll call you right back. She tells me, she says, well, I need to send you for a sonogram at the hospital. I was at my OB's office, but I need to go to the actual emergency room hospital, she said. Like, I need you to go to the hospital to get an image so they can use higher quality or higher tech, I don't know the term, but better machines so they get a better picture. And I said, well, why? Why can't you just do it now? Like, why can't you just see the baby right now? And she says, well, she goes, I don't see the baby. She goes, all your tests say you're pregnant. All your tests at home say pregnant. All the ones here say you're pregnant. Your HCG is high. And she goes, but I do not see the baby in your uterus. And she says, so that can mean two things. It can mean that your dates are off and your timing's off and you're earlier than you thought and we just can't see the baby, or the baby is growing outside of your uterus and you have an ectopic pregnancy. And I was like, what? Like, even then in that moment, I didn't have fear or worry. So I was like, okay, well, I was completely ignorant to what ectopic, I had never heard of that, ever. All I'd ever heard of was, I've heard of stillbirth, I've heard of miscarriages, like natural miscarriages, and live birth. That's it. I'd never heard of an ectopic pregnancy. It's just not talked about that much. So I didn't even ask more questions. I was like, okay, well, let's just go and get the sonogram at the hospital. So my mom was very quiet. Sorry about the motorcycles outside. But she was very quiet, and if you know my mom, that's not her. She always has an opinion to give me. And she had nothing to say. So that was weird for me. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you down? Like, why aren't you, we're just going to go get this other picture. And she was kind of like, like, yeah, let's just go. Let's go get it and see what they say. Maybe your date's wrong. And I was like, Mom, they're not wrong. I said, there's no way my dates are wrong. Like, my period comes like clockwork. Like, I know my period. It's not wrong. And she said, okay. So we go to the hospital. They take me pretty quickly. That's something else I didn't know. The ectopics are such an emergency that the doctor had already called them and told them that there was a suspicion that I had an ectopic pregnancy 2 months in. So they took me right away. Like, they took me as soon as I got there, and they did the sonogram. And I asked, I was like, well, do you see anything? And they said, well, we can't discuss it with you, which is bizarre to me because it's my body. We can't discuss it with you. Your OB will talk to you when they get it back at the office. And I said, well, will it be today? She goes, yeah, it'll be within the next few minutes. So we leave there, go back to my doctor, and she had the worst bedside manner ever. Like, she delivered, spoiler alert, I ended up having another baby. She delivered my baby I have now, and she still had terrible bedside manner. But in this moment, terrible bedside manner. She came in the room, closed the door, and she said, well, it's ectopic. And I said, what? I said, so what does that mean? Like, what is that? And she goes, so your baby is growing outside of the uterus, and it can't survive there. And I said, well, what do we do? How do we fix that? Like, what is the solution? And she goes, there isn't one. She goes, if this continues, you'll both die. Not kidding you. This is how she explained this to me. If we continue, you'll both die. If we don't continue, just the baby will die. Or maybe just the embryo will die. But she said that there's no way, there's no chance for a live birth. There's no way this baby will make it. And if we continue, you both will die. And it felt like someone had just... It felt like someone had just stabbed me in the throat, like, right to my throat. Like, I could not get anything out. So my mom kind of took over the conversation from there. And my mom's like, well, what do we do? And I was listening, but I couldn't say anything. All the while, Chris is blowing up my phone, texting and calling, because it's now been, like, probably an hour since she got him off the phone, and he doesn't know what's going on still. And I could not talk to him at the moment. I just couldn't. So, my mom asked her what we do. And she said, well, there's a couple options, and they both have to happen today. She said we could either do surgery, where we go in and we remove the baby surgically from your fallopian tube. Because they went in, and when I went to the hospital, they didn't tell me until later, but the baby was in my right fallopian tube. Like, it had embedded itself in my tubes. So my body still thought I was pregnant, but it was embedded in my, my tubes. So, Wow. Whew. So, the other option, she said, was to get 2 shots of methotrexate, which she explained is a chemotherapy drug. It's injections you get for cancer patients that they get when you don't get the normal. I guess I don't even want to speak on that because I don't want to mess up. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm not sure, but it is a chemotherapy drug and it's injections. So they asked me which one I preferred, and I said, well, it doesn't matter. Like it didn't matter to me at all what they did. Like, I didn't care. I literally just wanted it to be over. So, this is probably like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My doctor was probably at 2:30 or 3. By the time we had found the results and about to go and handle the situation, it was like 4. I had to go to the emergency room. So now I'm calling Chris. I told him all about it. My mom called my dad, showed him all about it. My dad was gonna come. I said, I don't want you to come. I didn't want anyone to come. Like, I just wanted to be by myself. Chris, of course, was like, crazy. It's not an option of coming. So he left work, came to the hospital. We were there all together. We didn't leave, and my mom didn't leave either. She refused to leave. So mom and Chris were there. So we were there until like 2 a.m. So the hospital was the worst experience of my life. And I don't think it's their fault. I guess it's just, protocol. But being in that situation, no one was sensitive to that situation. But I guess they're not there to be, my comforter, my friend. Like, they're there to get a job done. But they knew, they kept coming, they were like, oh, ectopic. They talked to me like I was just some, like, scientific specimen. Like, this didn't mean anything. I'm in tears. Like, this is just such a horrifying experience for me. But they're just, like, still talking around it, like, whatever. They came in very matter of fact of what they needed to do. They still made me take a pregnancy test. They still took blood tests. And it's like, I'm pregnant. Like, you guys know the situation. Like, can we just get on with it? I sat in that room for hours before they even came to do anything else. Like, hours and hours and hours. And they kept saying how weird it was that I wasn't in any pain. Now, I have a very high pain tolerance, but they said I still should have felt that because, in the weirdest way, probably about 3 hours in of sitting there, another girl comes in screaming. Like, when I tell you she's screaming, it is the most horrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, to the point people are like in the hallways, like, oh my God, is she okay? Like, screaming. She has an ectopic pregnancy. And it had ruptured, or I don't know the details of her story either, but screaming to the top of her lungs. She's in so much pain. And the nurse was telling mom, like, that's how she should feel. It's really weird that she doesn't feel that way. Whatever, I just didn't, I didn't feel pain. All I could think in that moment was about how awful it was. But then I remembered that we had just told everyone. Like 2 weeks ago, we had just told everyone that we were having this baby. We just told them. All my students at school knew. If you don't know, I have a video linked up here about my job and what I do. There's a video in the description as well. I'm a teacher, elementary school teacher, 4th graders, and they all knew because my whole school knew. They made a big deal out of me being pregnant, and my kids knew. They started making pictures for my baby. I had the best kids. For that. Like, they just were so sweet, and they were so excited for me. And I thought about them first. I had to tell my kids. Because they're my kids. I had to tell my kids that I had lost this kid. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't even think about everyone else, my family, my friends, everyone on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, all Chris's family and friends we had to tell. And it was awful. So I couldn't even handle that at the moment. And I remember telling Mom, like, just don't say anything to anyone. Just not tonight. Like, just don't address it. Because I know that my aunt, like my aunt's like my second mom, and I know she knew I was going to the doctor, so I knew by now she had contacted my mom. And I was like, I just don't want to, like, they were all checking in, like, how'd it go? How'd the appointment go? So I knew they had checked in by then, but didn't say anything. And fast forward to just hours and hours later, these nurses come in because they're anesthesiologists that give you this drug. They were in surgery apparently, so they come in and they kept monitoring me throughout to make sure nothing had ruptured or, I wasn't in any immediate danger. So they come in and they're explaining to me what they have to do. It's 2 shots in your butt, 1 in each cheek. And the needle's huge, but I honestly didn't care at the moment. And when they did that, they said you only have 1 person in the room. So Chris stayed. My mom ended up just going ahead and saying, I'm going to go ahead and head home because they knew after this, they asked if I could go home after this. I'm just mentally exhausted by this point. I've been out at the doctor since 2. It's now almost 2 a.m. I'm just exhausted. So, so they give me the first shot. And when I tell you, my heart shattered. And that sounds absolutely insane, but I could feel my heart shatter. I was so heartbroken when they gave me that shot because in the paperwork they gave me, it was saying how the first shot is to stop any heartbeat or function or any life that the embryo has, the baby has, which broke my heart. And the second one is to detach the embryo from my fallopian tube, and then eventually I would expel it. It broke my heart. And I was done. At that moment, I shut down. I had nothing else to say. I just wanted to go home and get in my bed and not talk to anyone. Chris said he was going to take off. I told him he had to go to work. Like, you have to go to work. I want to be by myself. I completely rejected help and discussion from anyone. By this point, my mom had to tell people. I didn't make any post. I didn't make any announcement or anything on social media. I just said, whatever. They'll figure it out when they see me that I'm not pregnant. I didn't say anything. I completely shut the world out. I was done. And for months, that's how I was. So, my family, Chris's family, they all wanted to know, how's Danielle? I got all these phone calls. I denied every phone call. I was on Do Not Disturb for a long time. I didn't want to talk to anyone. No one. Like, no one. I just wanted to be like, it just didn't happen. And that's what I did. That's how I handled it. It probably wasn't the best way because in the end, they were hurting too. It was a loss for everyone. But I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't. And I was angry. I was pissed off about the situation. I was angry about how it happened. I was angry that I decided to tell people. It was embarrassing, and I don't know why, but I felt embarrassed. And I hadn't even gone back to work yet. Like, I was out of work for a while because I just couldn't deal with people, and I was being no good to my students. My team, one of my very, very best friends, Savannah, she was on my team at the time, and she handled everything for me. She and Tanya, two of my amazing friends I have, they handled everything. I didn't make one lesson plan. I didn't have to contact one parent, one student, nothing. Like, I didn't do anything when I was off. She handled everything for me, and I love her so much. She was honestly, Tanya and Savannah were one of the only people outside of my mom and Chris that I talked to. They came and visited me. They brought me food. They made me eat. They really took care of me. Yeah. So, from there, I had to go back to work. And tell my kids. They were so sweet. They were just worried about me. The parents were so sweet. Oh, I'll have to show you guys sometime all the gifts they gave me. So many bracelets, so many letters, so many cards, flowers, just so many things, because they knew how hard it had to be. And you would think that after you get those injections, that's it, but it's not, just the beginning. That night, I was in so much pain. I threw up for hours. I had cramps and pain for hours. It was, now I know, just like contractions, like you're actually giving birth. That's what it was like, until I actually did expel the embryo. Once again, broke my heart to see that. It was like it just wouldn't end. The other thing is that they have to make sure it actually worked. So even though you see, things come out, you have to get blood tests, because your HCG levels have to go down. Your body doesn't know that you are not pregnant anymore because I didn't actually give birth. So I had to get these blood draws every week. I got blood draws every week for 2 months. Like, you probably can't really see, but my wrists are so bruised. When I had my baby, when I had Nova, IVs, my IV was up here. They tried down, like, my veins are just blown. Like, they're just, from this experience, my veins are done. Like, they just don't take anymore. I cannot get my blood drawn from my veins normally. Usually I have to use my hands. But yeah, weeks and weeks they would have to do blood draws. And I remember I was at like 2000, and I would go, and I couldn't eat any folic acid, like nothing. So like no leafy greens. If you look at your food and you're like, go in your pantry, folic acid is in everything. And I had to pretty much only eat, ice cream and chips. So pretty much every day, ice cream with chocolate syrup. And that was fine, because I was super depressed anyway. So every week I would go, and like, I was 2000. After 1 week, it would be like 1,700. And it's like, oh my God, you have to get to 0. You have to get to 0 before they stop testing you. And I remember I got so tired. And I went one day and it was at 100. And they were like, you have to come back. And then I went and it was 20. They were like, you have to come back. And I just lost it. I lost it. I was so mentally exhausted. But what I wanted to make this video for was to tell you that there's so much hope. In that moment, I felt zero hope. I just knew that was it. I was never gonna have kids. That was gonna be it. We weren't gonna be successful, and I was gonna give up. But I want to tell you that there is so much more to this story. There's so much more ups and downs to this story. You guys see me now with my husband and my baby, and that's a happy ending, but that ectopic wasn't it. Getting to 0 wasn't it. And I hope you'll follow me along on this story. It's going to be a little series here on my channel, so any woman that's going through something like this, please subscribe so you don't miss those. If you don't care about anything else I say, subscribe so you can hear those stories, because pregnancy journeys are hard and they're difficult, and you can feel alone a lot of the time. So this video is getting way too long, so I just want to cut it off here and then give you the next part very soon. So please subscribe, send a comment, send well wishes to each other down there, encouragement. If you have any questions about my experience, things that you have questions about that I didn't touch on, please comment down below. I will reply to you, because this is what I needed when I was going through that. I needed someone to really open up and just be there for me, that actually went through it, to be real and honest about the situation. And it's a whole other story for a different day, but being a Black woman going through it, very difficult as well. Thank you for watching. I know this was long, but I hope that you will come along for the rest of the story, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.